Why do you get 1 view at a normal video and 1K views at a short? Let's go over it. I'm going to go over it in 2 passes. A quick pass where you can pause to read, and then a fast pass where I'll go into more detail. 1. Shorts are on a separate algorithm. 2. Infotainment gets more views than educational. 3. My code is insane and highly alien. 4. My code is not for beginners. 5. YouTube algorithm is simpler than you think. And let's scroll down here a little bit. You can pause here to read the rest of that. Okay, 6. My video titles are optimized for humans rather than the YouTube algorithm. 7. Vertical versus horizontal A/B testing. 8. Day of release. Okay, so you can stop watching now if you've paused and you're satisfied, but I'm going to get into ranting about each one of these topics for you now if you would like to hear. So, going back up to the top, let's look at this one. So I've watched a lot of videos about the YouTube algorithm and the difference between shorts and long-form content. And when shorts first debuted, they were on the same algorithmic thread as the long-form video. But what happened is that people who came to videos for shorts and like subscribed to your channel, they didn't really want to see your long-form content. So a whole bunch of users kind of got frustrated that they subscribed for one kind of content and they ended up getting a different kind of content. So YouTube has taken conscious effort to separate shorts and long form. So you have different algorithmic stats depending on if your video is a short or a long form video. Therefore, you could think of your shorts and your long form videos as conceptually being on two different channels as far as the algorithm is concerned. Okay, let's go down here. Infotainment gets more views than educational. Think about the most popular technical person you can think of. I would say, to me, that would probably be Michael Reeves, right? Makes some awesome fucking crazy shit with, like, robots and electronics. But he doesn't get into the nitty-gritty details of the code. He does, like, a brief overpass kind of explaining the general idea, but he doesn't get into all the details. He's just like, my code is shit, here's basically what it does, alright, let's get into the action. And his format would be considered infotainment. Educational is harder, right? Because when you're trying to learn something, it's frustrating, it's not as enjoyable. And so educational just gets less views because it's frustrating, right? Like, who wants to when you get home from work and your brain is fried, do you want to watch educational stuff or do you want to watch infotainment? And unless you've been doing research into this, you might not even realize that there's a distinction between infotainment and educational. And a lot of stuff that maybe you've been watching that you thought was educational content is actually infotainment. So, for example, how it's made, right? How it's made will tell you how a shoe factory works, how rope is made, how Coca-Cola bottles its Coke, and it's really interesting, but it actually is only surface level. It just gives you enough information to satiate your curiosity, but it doesn't do more than that. Like, after watching how it's made, you don't know how to set up a fucking shoe factory or make Coca-Cola from scratch. However, with my tutorials, it basically is telling you how to make the factory, right? And that's going to be a lot more difficult, right? Because that's all the nitty-gritty implementation details. And not only is what I'm doing a lot harder, it's also borderline insane. So imagine that it's very difficult to understand what I'm talking about, but you don't even know if what I'm talking about is, like, true or not. Because, I'm so far gone that listening to me is like listening to a crazy fucking mad scientist saying that I have the keys to time travel and I know how to set up a factory that can make time travel watches. You just wear them and you can go to any time, right? Like saying something crazy like that. Like, it sounds crazy, and it would be a lot of work. So it's like, okay, it's a lot of work, so people don't want to do it. And then how can people trust me? How can people trust that I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about? And they can't. Until I get a lot of very impressive technical things, most people will not trust me. Most people are not going to subscribe to my channel. However, the people, my close friends who know me, my close friends who went to school with me, I have a totally different reputation with them, right? They will trust that I know what I'm doing, right? The small circle I have, right? Me and my artist Josh. Josh knows I know what the fuck I'm doing, and he trusts that being on a project with me is a good place to be. But unless you went to school with me, you don't know my reputation, right? You don't know my reputation, and in order to establish a new reputation, we have to show something fucking awesome, right? Like, people don't want to see your code. People don't want to see your code until they see what your code can do. And if they're not impressed by what your code can do, they don't give a fuck about what your code looks like. So, right now, so it's not just infotainment and educational. It's really, we could actually make a point. We could make a point 3 here. I have no reputation on YouTube. So. Right. So this right here is coming from here, right? So, actually, I was actually fired from a, ArenaNet? I don't know if I'm not supposed to drop the net. Whatever, it's been like 10 years. Okay, so this happened. This actually happened. And, you know, like, when you have your first... I'm ranting here, but when you have your first desk job, it's totally different than working, like, customer service or working fast food. The culture's differently. There's a culture shock. You don't know how to behave, so I had that. I had a lot of trouble with my first job. I've been fired many times. Fortunately, not always for the same reason. Well, no, I've never been fired for the same reason twice. I've never been fired for the same reason twice in a row. However, there's an infinite amount of ways you can fuck up at a job, right? So yeah, there's that. But you unfortunately experience what you get after you need it, right? You fuck up, and then you just try not to make that fuck up again. But the point is that I have no reputation, and I'm freaking insane. So why would somebody want to invest their time with me when I'm fucking insane, right? Okay, so this is now point 4. Okay, my code is insane and highly alien, right? So not only do I not have a reputation, but the way I do things is, like, highly liberal and unorthodox. So a lot of times, like, we think of programmers as being kind of liberal, like, right? When you think of, like, conservative versus liberal, you think programmers are usually, they're more liberal than conservative, right? They're, right, it's Silicon Valley, everyone's left-leaning, right? Except, programmers are actually very conservative when it comes to their culture. When it comes to their culture of how they think things should be done, right? We have, like, the whole Uncle Bob's clean code, and we have design patterns, and we have all these tips and tricks and things about how you're supposed to do things. And I've been programming for a while, And I've been programming for over 15 years now, and the more and more I program, the more of that kind of common sense stuff, the mainstream stuff, the more of it I start to fucking just throw the fuck away and do something else. And I don't just do that to do that. I mean, maybe it's because I've been watching too many TED Talks, but like I watch like TED Talks on psychology, and, you know, there's the fast thinking versus slow thinking circuits of your brain, and there's like elaborative encoding for how you can easily memorize something if you make a visual story about it, right? There's a whole bunch of mental principles about how to memorize things, how to learn things, and I've been kind of experimenting with those principles to try to make a code base that's easier for me to understand, but it breaks a shit ton of rules. But I have reasons for why I do that, but it makes everything highly experimental. And a lot of times when I'm experimenting, I will end up doing something that's actually really stupid. But you have to experiment with a whole bunch of weird-ass ways to write code to break out of the local maximum, right? The local maximum is like the industry standard of like how you're supposed to write code, right? All the mainstream tips is like a local maximum, and in order to get to a maximum higher than that maximum, you need to experiment wildly. And a lot of experimentation is going to yield worse code, but every once in a while you find something that's fucking crazy, but it actually helps a lot. For example, one of the less controversial things I do is I try to focus on like data-oriented design, and I actually try to stay away from object-oriented programming, because I think that object-oriented programming is only popular because people can grope their way around the IDE. Anyways, I'm ranting here. The point is that my code is highly insane and alien, right? It breaks all these conventions of what people are supposed to do. And I don't know if you've ever heard that saying, like that saying in, like, I think it was from, like, Inspector Gadget. It might be in other movies as well, where, like, you have this detective who's, like, the protagonist, but they're, like, bumbling, and the big bad guy's all like, man, this person is either a complete fucking idiot or a fucking genius, right? Now, I don't want to say I'm a genius, but I'm saying that a lot of what I do is gonna look like what a complete beginner does, right? Like, notice that all of my source code, right, is in one fucking file, right? That sounds like something a beginner would do. Why is all your source code in one file? Shouldn't you break things up into little reusable modules? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, right? Like, I'm breaking a big fucking rule here. What kind of person does this? Only beginners do this. Only beginners put everything in one file. Hey, what's up with that? Why is all this section green? Oh, it's partitioned to comments on the bottom and code on the top. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. There's probably a reason for that. Possibly that clean code has a culture of just not writing enough comments. Clean code. Don't describe things that are fucking, what do you call it? Don't describe things that are simple, right? Don't describe things that are simple. Only explain the complicated parts of your code. That's what clean code says, right? You don't want to clutter up your code with a whole bunch of comments, do you? Yeah, I say fuck that. I say Uncle Bob fucking doesn't know what he's talking about there, okay? Here's why. A lot of times, I would say maybe 80% of the time, when my code is wrong, there's a problem with my code, 80% of the time, the comment is correct, but the code is wrong. And so even though it may be a comment for something very simple, it gives a redundancy to let you know that the code and the comment, they kind of need to match. And if the code and comment don't match, then you have a problem. Because some people will say, oh, if the comment doesn't match the code, oh god, now you have to maintain the comments. Blah, 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 blah. No, the thing is that if the code and the comment doesn't match, then everything is wrong. It's not the comment is wrong, it's not the code is wrong. If the code and the comment do not match, then everything is wrong. Okay? Because if we write a code base with 0 comments, does that mean that the code is always 100% correct? Hey, look, the code always does what it says it does, because it's just code. There's no comments for the human being, right? So it can never be wrong now, right? According to, like, Uncle Bob logic of, like, clean code, that's how that would roll. So the comments give you kind of a redundancy. However, I totally agree with the whole clean code aspect of your comments will, like, clutter up the code. So what I do is I put most of my comments at the bottom of the file, and then I have, like, little hashtag footnotes that you kind of use as hyperlinks to jump to, like, the bottom of the file and see the long-form content, right? So, but that's highly alien. Nobody fucking does that. Nobody does that. Why the fuck would you do that? That's fucking crazy, right? Like if we grab onto 128 by 128 chunky nums, look at this big diagram here that's in the bottom of the file. If I grab onto this and go Control F, and I go look around, oh, bam! We're in the fucking code! Oh, so all this code that makes absolutely no sense to me when I glance at it, and then all this, yeah, all this code that doesn't make sense to me when I glance at it, well, here's a mental model to jog your memory as to what that code means, right? But all of these comments aren't cluttering up the source code section, which makes sense because once you see the comment and the comment is in your head, you don't need to see the comment again, right? So I totally get the whole problem where with clean code people don't like writing a whole bunch of comments because it clutters up the code and makes it kind of hard to read. Totally agree with that. But the fucking solution is not, oh, let's just not write any comments. Let's write less comments. No, that's not the fucking solution. The fucking solution is to somehow have a way to separate your comments and your code and kind of offboard them. So if I need to know what this section does, well, this section divider tells me where the section begins and ends, right? Because there's left justification here for the beginning, there's right justification here for the end, and there's also little hashtags around the section name, which let me know that I can pop down to a diagram, right? That's very unorthodox. I think that it makes sense, but it's not like an accepted practice. Like, it's fucking insane, right? So who wants to follow my code if I'm doing, like, weird-ass, insane shit like that? Nobody wants to do that, unless I have a reputation that shows that my method is unorthodox, but I know what I'm doing. Like, no one's gonna fucking follow me. Okay, so my code's also not for beginners. So in addition to being completely batshit crazy and insane to the point where somebody who has already coded a lot will look at my code and they'll still be fucking confused because it's completely foreign. It breaks all these best practices. So so it's not even written for beginners, but even if you're an advanced programmer, you're still gonna maybe feel like a beginner because the way I do things is like so foreign to how other people do things. Okay. So the YouTube algorithm is simpler than you think. Okay. So I don't have any proof of this. This is just a assumption. It's an assumption. It is a hunch, but I really do think that what it comes down to is that the only thing that matters for the YouTube algorithm is the title of your video. Nothing else fucking matters. Okay, maybe it matters, like, in a very minuscule way. Like, imagine a grain of rice falling through a waterfall and trying to... Did that grain of rice make a big difference, right? Like, maybe if a boulder was falling down a waterfall, right, that would make a noticeable difference. But a grain of rice in a waterfall? No, you don't notice it. And so all these other things you can do, like tags and what? Categories, putting it in a playlist. All those things are like a grain of rice in a waterfall. The only thing that really matters is your video title. So if you don't make a video title that the algorithm can understand, then you're going to get fucked by the algorithm. So the thing is that my number one priority right now is documenting the code and not doing something to get popular. Because I see a lot of people doing stuff to get popular and getting a lot of viewers on YouTube, and they end up not being able to, like, write really awesome things because they just don't have fucking time, because they're too busy, like, cranking out videos to get a whole bunch of views, and they build, like, this massive following, but I see their projects, and I'm like, I'm not really that impressed by your project. Like, you got a huge viewership, and everybody sees you as a guru, and it looks like you know what you're talking about on all these subjects, but I think maybe you could make something awesome if you dedicated time to it, but you're too busy focusing on getting views. And so it's like, okay, so now you got to make a choice between, do I want to get the views, or do I want to make something awesome and just document it really thoroughly? And right now, I just want to make something awesome and document it thoroughly, and I don't want to focus too much on trying to get views. Like, views would be nice, but until I get to video 999 of the tutorial series I'm working on, until I get that far, I'm not going to worry about getting views. So once I get to video 999, I'll reassess my life choices and maybe do some focusing on how do I get more views, how do I build a followership, how do I do SEO, how do I do all that stuff. But right now, I really need to focus on just how do I make a fucking game. Okay, so speaking of, like, the YouTube algorithm, and it only cares about titles, right? I was starting off naming everything Bomb Game Tutorial Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, right? The idea was that I named it this way so that maybe the YouTube algorithm could understand that if somebody watches this, you should serve them this one as the next one, and this one as the next one, right? Doing something for the YouTube algorithm to understand that it's a series, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, if somebody gets to playlist 2, this is very redundant information here. This is very, especially in a playlist, it's very redundant information. Now, this helps the algorithm a little bit, but it's very redundant information. It's not actually helpful for a human being. It's actually like a high signal to noise ratio, right? This is the noise, and this is the signal, right? But we could be more terse, and we could get more information in the title. We could get more information in the title, but we would have to sacrifice YouTube algorithm. So what do I mean? So this is much more information dense, but it's not YouTube algorithm friendly. These titles here are designed for a human being, right? I'm designing my code base for humans, not for YouTube algorithm. So I'm highly deviating from the norm. So the YouTube algorithm is going to work for most people, you could say. It's going to work for most people. It's going to work for most videos. What I'm doing deviates so strongly from the norm that YouTube literally does not know how to categorize me. YouTube does not know how to categorize me. So let's take this. Let's take this and make a point for 5, 6. So there's another point here. 7. YouTube algorithm does not know how to categorize my videos. 1. So the algorithm is designed for what most people are doing, right? I slip through the cracks, right? Deviation from the norm is punished. Not... Right, so this is not a moral statement. This is a statement of fact, right? So example. Right? Like left-handers and dying of accidents, right? It's not that people are intentionally trying to punish left-handers. It's that when all the doors are made for right-handers and all the tools are made for right-handers, then if you're a left-hander, your statistical chance of an accident is higher, right? So the algorithm is designed for what most people are doing, and I'm not doing what most people are doing, especially with my video titles. So, of course, I'm going to slip through those algorithmic cracks. 2. My video titles are not right. So this video title, right? Okay, so this is an actual video title of mine, and how's the YouTube algorithm going to understand this? Now, if it's in a playlist, if it's in my playlist, then anyone with half a brain is going to know, oh, this is video 108, this is the subsystem name, oh, and it's part 1. But it's very terse and dense. But if you're watching my videos, then this is very obvious, right? But that's designed for a human being, right? So this name, you can't, the YouTube algorithm, when it's looking at the names of videos, it doesn't understand the name of a video in isolation like this, right? When it's trying to figure out what the video means, it's only looking at this. It's not looking at the playlist it's in, right? It's not watching the video. So it needs to figure out, well, what does this mean here? What does this name mean in isolation, right? So yeah. So my videos titles are not understandable by the YouTube algorithm. They contain a low signal to ratio, which is actually bad for the algorithm because the video titles cannot be understood in isolation. 3. Understanding my video titles requires... are these subparts? Watching my videos. Alright? Okay, case in point. Case in point. Alright, case in point. This video name was flagged as spam. It was flagged as spam, and I almost got my channel banned. I'm just writing code. I'm just trying to write some code. I'm just trying to show people how to make this engine. I'm trying to show people how to make an engine that's never been made before, right? I'm trying to do something that I would consider revolutionary in 2D graphics. And what does YouTube do to me? Not only do they not promote my stuff, but they almost ban me. Okay, so now, okay, so right, so I'm just getting fucked from everywhere. Okay, Uh, yeah, but like I said, my video titles are optimized for humans rather than the YouTube algorithm, right? So that's 0.7, right? 0.8, 0.9, okay. So we got a lot of things. I think I'm done kind of explaining this. Because I've already been going for like 30 minutes. I've already been going for 30 minutes, and if you've actually watched all this, thank you. I don't think anyone's actually going to watch this all the way through. But yeah, that's what's going on. That's what's going on. So now I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining here to say, oh my god, I'm such a fucking victim. I know what I'm doing, and I know why what's happening is happening, right? Like, maybe, let's take an analogy. I'm gonna make a crude analogy. Let's say, you know, I'm gonna be very stereotypical here, so don't cancel me on Twitter or whatever. But let's say that you know that if you want to be successful at dating, you need to dress really nice. You don't really like suits, but you know you gotta dress nice because girls like that. And you know you got to make a lot of money, so you go get a nice job, and you let everyone know how rich you are, right? And you know you need to be tall, so you break your leg in 5 places or something, and you get leg extensions, right? You do all those things to like so that you can be like really good at dating, right? And if your goal is just to get into like a whole bunch of like flings, right? Get into a whole bunch of flings and have your like have your, what do you call it? I don't know, have your dating app. Whatever dating app people are using these days. You want your dating app to fucking blow up so you can just fucking get laid by a new girl like every day, right? So if that's your goal, then those are the things you want to do, right? But maybe your goal is like a long-term relationship with someone who's not shallow, right? And so your strategy is going to be different. So maybe you're not going to break your legs. You're going to stay the short person you are. Okay. Well, now exponentially less women are interested in you because there's actually statistics on this where like OkCupid parsed the statistics, and for every inch under 6 foot, the response rate from women goes down exponentially. And then a similar thing happens with how much money you make, and there's a whole bunch of things we could say, right? But maybe if you're trying to go after somebody who just finds you interesting and likes you for your personality, then you don't want to be flaunting your money or your status or stuff. You just want to be your original self, right? And your original self probably does not have a mass appeal, right? Your original self probably doesn't have a mass appeal. So as I am doing this code base, you could say that my code base is my original self. That the goal here on YouTube is to make some fucking awesome documentation, right? Like if this code base actually goes somewhere and it gets popular, I have documented every fucking single line of code. This is going to be one of the best documented code bases in like the history of humankind, right? That's fucking pretentious to say, but I seriously mean it. However, if my goal is the best documented code base of all time for a fucking awesome engine, that's a very long-term strategy, right? Focusing on that is not the same thing as focusing on views, right? It's a totally different strategy because what I'm interested in is if I'm going to be working in this code base for 10 years, right? If I still want to be working on this code base in 10 years and be able to manage the complexity, from my experience, you really have to meticulously document things because you're going to forget what things do. You're going to forget what things do, and so you need to meticulously document things. You need to have a very strict way that you put everything together. And my goal is to have this code base around in 10 years. To have this code base around in 10 years. Now, that's a lofty goal. I've made a lot of code bases before. None of them have lasted that long. What the fuck makes me think I can do that, right? Well, I've made 5 prototypes. I've made 5 little prototypes and proofs of concepts of what I'm currently doing now. And now I'm saying this is gonna be the final one. This is gonna be the magnum opus, right? I don't even know what magnum opus means, but I think it means like big book thingy that has like all your stuff in it, right? So this is my magnum opus, whatever that fucking means, right? See, look at me using words bigger than what I know they mean because I want to sound smart, and that's right. Blah blah blah. Anyways, so yeah, that's why. That's why. So. If you really sticked around for this rant, then good for you, right? Like, I think that anyone who actually sticks around to listen to me for as long as I can fucking talk, if you can fucking tolerate me, that's better than what I can tolerate. I don't know if I can watch what I just said all the way through, so if you can, that's good on you. Because I do think that once my stuff starts getting awesome, that it's going to be that core audience. It's going to be that core audience of people who knew there was something awesome there before the channel blew up, right? That's the core audience that I'm going to need to remember to have, like, some type of allegiance to, right? Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen I say when, but I don't know when, but maybe never. But let's say that I do get super popular, right? And then I don't have time, I don't have time to reply to your comment in a fucking, hour-long video, right? What am I gonna do then, right? Like, what happens when I don't have time to get back to everyone? What am I gonna do? And I think that when it comes down to that, I need to analyze, I need to figure out who my core audience is, who was interested in me before I got cool, right? Before I got popular, who was talking to me, and somehow keep a communication channel open with those people. But anyways, you have been on a rant, and if you're interested in the code, the code snapshot where all of those comments are put at the bottom of the file is at github.com/kanjicoder/aim474. I'm gonna go push that up right now before I publish this video, and then I am going to probably give you like a little tiny URL to this video so that you can find it. In fact, I'm gonna put something right down here. I'm gonna say so I'm gonna put a little thing here. I'm gonna say video for this comment section here. Okay, I'm gonna put this thing here. I'm gonna go www.tinyurl.com/Andorei. I kind of said Andorei asks. Okay. So I think that's probably a unique enough name where I can make a tiny URL for that. So I want to put something else in there. Actually, let me just go to tinyurl, make sure that doesn't exist yet, so that I can make it. Okay, yeah. So I'll make this into a tiny URL here, so that if you want to get back, to the, yeah, I'll just do that. Whatever. Let's get the fuck out of here. Okay. So, anyways, with that said, I am out of here. I am Kanji Coder. I'm working on Atomic Ivy MMO. It's a MMO completely done from scratch. I am basically making like a side-scroller Bomberman game. There's a lot I could say about it. I could actually rant. Like, I've been thinking about how to do this for years and years, like 10 plus years. So I could literally just give you the overview. I could give you the overview of what I'm doing, and it would still take me an hour. And I know this. I'm not exaggerating. I know this because I've given people my overview of what I'm doing speech on Twitch, and I've done it many times, and it takes at least an hour every fucking single time I do it. So I've already taken up 40 minutes, so I'm not going to take up any more time. I know I keep on saying I'm ending this, but I'm super ending it now, right here. So here's the links. I'm going to pause here, so if you want to watch the advanced playlist, it's here on the Kanji Coder channel. If you want to watch the 10-minute videos, they're on the Ninja Coder channel. If you want to watch just the technical demos, and kind of see where the project currently is without getting bogged down by code, then every single video on the Weeb Coder channel is going to be a technical demo of where the project currently is. Since playlist number 5. This playlist originally started out as just like a long-form, unscripted playlist, but now it's just technical demos because when I watch Handmade Hero, I'm like, what does the code currently look like? What does the game currently look like? And searching for it with the Handmade Hero stuff is fucking difficult as hell. So I decided I'd make 3 parallel playlists to kind of solve some of those problems. Source code is here with those long comments at the bottom of the file that I just went over. And you can email me here. I'm not famous yet, so if you want to email me, go ahead. I'll be able to get back to you. And like, subscribe, send money in the mail.